dream job in cybersecurity, what corporate recruiters don't tell you. And I just happen to have a corporate recruiter right here.
Hello.
And you can ask her all the questions that are burning in your mind about how to land your dream job. So I'd like to introduce myself first. I'm Beverly Farms. I work for the Lookout Foundation, and I help to make this event happen. And I'm thrilled to be here. I love this event. And thank you so much for everyone being here. I'd like Brenley to introduce herself.
Yes. So I'm Brenley Brotman. Many of you heard me do the kickoff. I am part of Lookout. I actually have two roles. I am the head of our Lookout Foundation, which is part of the Pledge 1%, and I also run global recruiting. And so the purpose of this talk is to let you guys in on the inside about what happens when you are looking for a job. What do recruiters care about? What happens when they're negotiating with you? What are kind of the levers you could pull in order to land your dream job? So we have about 25 minutes, and I want this to be interactive. So you have questions, please, I will be totally transparent, and I will answer anything you have. So Bev, let's hit me with a question.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think it's really useful to start at the beginning.
Okay.
So if you can just give us an overview of the process,
Yeah.
because I think it's a little opaque.
Yes. And so the question that I get most frequently is, how do you know what jobs are going to be open in the next quarter, the next year? So here's the secret sauce. If it's a software company, they usually start their fiscal year on February 1st. So it's not calendar, it's not January 1st, it's February 1st. Why? Because they want to recognize the revenue that comes in at the end of the year. Okay? So if you are going to be looking for a job and you want to time it, if that makes sense, most recs open up in the first quarter, okay? But when the organization looks at creating their budgets, they do generally, if they're small, they'll do a 1-year plan broken out by quarter, right? And so then they open up recs potentially each quarter, unless there's turnover. If someone quits, then they open up right away. So keep that in mind, that generally the summer times are slower and it picks up again in Q4.
So that brings up a good question, because I think I know the answer to this, but are all jobs posted? All of these magical recs you talk about?
Oh, they're not posted. Why are they not all posted? It depends. Sometimes managers get a new project that they have to work on. Sometimes sales has a big close and a new customer wants a certain set of features. And so there are additions to staff. Sometimes a organization looks at the talent in their team and they know that someone may be moving to another role or there are internal discussions going on. So they don't necessarily post all the jobs, to be very transparent.
So you can't necessarily count on looking at job postings to find your dream job. So imagine that you're one of these women.
Yep.
And you're thinking, okay, I need to make a change, or it's one of our keynotes.
Yeah.
They have found themselves in a situation where they're looking to change.
Yeah.
How do you even approach the process? How do you even start?
It's like, imagine if you were planning a wedding for someone. Okay. Think about the fact that you would probably have a project plan in place. Think about the fact that you probably create a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet might have different tabs. And I always tell people to look at their job search just like a project. Okay. You want to start out by identifying if you know what your target companies are. You want to put that on a tab. You want to identify job posts that look interesting to you. You put those links on another tab. You want to look at your LinkedIn and see who are your tightest connections. You want to put that on another tab. And I always recommend that you reverse engineer a job hunt. Over 40% of all hires are done through employee referrals. I'll be honest with you. It's the largest way of finding talent. And how do you get an employee referral? You look at who your connections are on LinkedIn. I can tell you that, and I would welcome it If all of you guys connected with me on LinkedIn, you will get to a lot of recruiters and a lot of heads of recruiting for you to start your path on who might I know, who knows of someone. So the target companies are basically identified to where you want to go. The target job postings are things that you're immediately interested in, but LinkedIn is going to be the most important about who may be connected with whom. Okay. I always recommend that you have over 500 LinkedIn connections. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you just sit there and build over a period of time, you'll get there. And the reason why is it doesn't matter if you're a coding position or a sales position, hiring managers and others on the team want to see that you're networked, right? That you know people, that you're fresh in the industry, right? They want to know that you're constantly out there promoting yourself and obviously building out your network.
So, for the people who can identify their dream job or have a sense of what goes on that tab
Yep.
of jobs, if you don't know, how do you get exposure to other areas? If you're in IT and you want to move into cyber,
Yep.
how do you even start to boil that ocean?
Yeah. So the secret sauce is that does happen. Okay. But to be honest, they pretty much have to be related fields. And what I mean by that, it is an easy transition from engineering to product or product to engineering, for example. It's a harder transition if you go from product to becoming an art specialist, right? So it has to be, your transition needs to be something related. If it's totally unrelated, you should have a connection. You'll need to be hand carried through the process because that will become difficult because you're competing with individuals that are already in the space.
Okay, so we've figured out what our jobs are. We've reached out to our network and we're starting to get some traction within the
Yep.
company.
Yep.
So let's say, for example, that you're able to reach a recruiter. What happens next? How do you impress upon that person, consider me, get me to the
Yeah.
front of the line?
Yeah. So a step before that is if you're applying for a position, please make sure that if a recruiter goes to your resume, which will come through the applicant tracking system or LinkedIn, there's something relevant about the job you're applying for. That's really, really important. And it doesn't need to be full-time work. It doesn't. It could be volunteer work. It could be classes that you took. I can't tell you how many candidates we have that would like to apply for a security role, but they haven't taken any classes. They haven't shown anything that they've taken the next step. So that's first and foremost. Second is that if a recruiter reaches out to you to have a chat, that's always something they'll want to schedule. Before that chat, make sure that you research the company. I can't tell you how many times people will say, what's the company again, right? And it's really easy to do. You could go on LinkedIn, you could just type in the name of the company and it will show you the company history. There's a little hyperlink to the people in the company, okay? And that's automatically public. And that way you could see who works in the company that might be connected with you. It always starts with your first connections and then it will go down to your second and third. So you want to prepare yourself. If once again you have not a lot of information off the website, you could go to Crunchbase. Okay, let's say it's a pre-IPO company and learn about their rounds of funding, but you just want to be prepared with something. Also, look up the recruiter's background on LinkedIn, see if there's any synergies there or anyone that person knows that you may know or something like that, because that always helps in the conversation.
I think brings up a good point. People hire people.
Yeah.
And if you can connect with that recruiter, they are the screening process. You have to get past them first. So if you are able to connect with the recruiter,
Yeah.
how should you be preparing for the interview? So that first interview after the recruiter with the hiring manager.
So,
Prepare for that.
so the recruiter, here's the secret sauce. We want to hire you. There is no question that if we're calling you, you're in. Okay, so we want to do that. The recruiter also would like to coach you. Okay, but you need to ask for it, right? So you need to say, if the recruiter says, would you be interested in taking the next step? You would say, that sounds terrific. Whom will I be meeting with? Can you tell me a little bit about that individual? What do they look for? You know, what kind of the hot spots? What would be of interest? Like, have the recruiter coach you. If there isn't time for that, send the recruiter an email and say, could we spend 10 minutes? I'd like to understand the org chart or the organization better before I go into this interview with the hiring manager or the hiring team. Remember, the recruiter is truly your advocate. Their goal is to find the best talent and fill the job as quickly as possible.
That brings up a good point because the recruiter is putting you in front of the hiring manager who is their client. And they want you to show up in the best possible way. And they want you to be successful. So
Yep.
I think that's really good. Treat the recruiter like your advocate, like your partner. So let's assume interviews go great.
Beautiful.
You've written thank you emails to everyone you've
Amazing.
spoken to.
Good practice.
Bespoke, lovely
Mhm.
emails.
Mhm.
And now it's time. They get to you. And now it's time to talk about the offer.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where the nitty gritty
This
happens.
is good stuff.
So, how do you even approach the offer?
Yeah.
How do you even think about what you should be asking for? Because I think we all know, ladies, we don't ask for enough.
Yeah, very true.
So listen
So
to this.
first thing, with the new Pay Transparency Act across many states in the country, companies are required to put in a range. Some companies have become very clever, right? Because they don't want to bet against themselves. So they'll put a range from 54,000 up to 325,000. Okay. That is not helpful to anyone. So when you get to a recruiter and you were to say, could you give me a sense of what this position pays or something like that, they're going to flip it around and they're going to say, can you give me a sense of what you're looking for? They are not trying to give you a trick question. They really want to know. But if you're afraid of betting against yourself, give me a sense of what the budget is for this position. Okay. Every single position, unless it's a Series A, Series B company pre-IPO, but if you get to Series C and above, especially companies that are over 500 employees, they're going to have a comp structure. Every single job in that company will have a job code and a range connected to it. That's where the recruiter is looking at how much they could put on the job description. But they're crafty because we're all crafty in recruiting. But what they do is the manager might be open to various levels. I'll look at people who are junior, I'll look at people who are senior. So just make sure if you want to get a good sense, ask about the budget for the role.
And recruiters are inclined to give you a
Yes.
window.
Once again, they want to hire you, right? This is not like a, how do I posture myself, right? They're calling you because they want to hire you.
So money is obviously the top line, but then there's all kinds of other things that are negotiable
Yeah.
that maybe we don't even think are negotiable. What should we be thinking about
Yeah.
as we go into that?
I'm going to give you an example of a security analyst. Let's say that this position is $110,000 with a couple of years out of school. Okay. So we've posted the position. We've asked, generally the recruiter asks, what are you looking for? If you're comfortable being transparent, then be transparent. I'm really looking for a total comp of X. You do not need to divulge what you're making at your current company. Okay. And they cannot ask you. Some of them do, and you want to flip that around again. Give me a sense of what you're looking for. So if that salary, let's just say they offer you a position at 110,000 and you have a sense of what the range is, and that still feels a little bit short to you, one of the things you need to think about is that hiring manager is looking at internal compression. So what is Jane Doe making that has been with the company for 7 years? Okay. What is your experience and where does that fall in alignment? Okay. So compression more than budget, okay, will be a determining factor in a lot of offers. If you are still feeling very strongly about 110,000, there are many ways to slice that. Okay. Some positions, generally those are jobs that have go public, but there are some pre-IPOs that offer bonus programs. Okay. When there's a bonus program pre-IPO, it's generally based on company performance. There's no wiggle room there. Okay. They generally will offer you the bonus plan based on your date of hire through the end of that fiscal year. So don't even try and negotiate bonus. It's linked to that job code that I mentioned earlier. Vacation time, nope, it's accrued in a company, okay? Their little payroll system knows how to every pay period know what you're gonna make based on your tenure. So it's really, unless it's a very small company, you can't really negotiate vacation. However, HR, and I'm sorry, HR, if I tell people this, but HR, we're very sophisticated at turning our backs with the agreements that new hires make with their managers. And that's what we tell managers. I don't need to know, right? We happen to work in a company that it's unlimited, but that's always with, their boundaries around that. But whatever you and the manager come up with agreement, that is fine. So vacation is not, you can accrue it at a higher rate, but if you have a trip planned or something like that, but please know that's year one. Okay, don't expect that to be a recurring pattern because it probably won't. So now what else do you play with? Sign-on bonus. We love sign-on bonus in recruiting. Okay, the reason why we like sign-on bonus is because it's non-reoccurring compensation. It's a one-time deal. Finance departments are picky about sign-ons because some managers say just throw one on. You need to have a reason that you want to sign on. And if you could authentically tell a story, I'm leaving some money on the table. I was actually making more. I'm hoping to buy a home. Whatever it may be, just be real. And sign on is one of the pieces that are flexible. The last thing are options and RSUs. Those are also at a range based on that job code. And that is negotiable, okay? So if they can't touch the 110,000 base, they could certainly touch the options. They can certainly touch the potentially the sign-on. And also, if you're looking for 115 and they offer you 110, don't look at short-term gain, long-term pain. Don't not take a job. Break that over a period of 52 weeks. I mean, it's not worth $5,000. So make sure if you like the boss, you like the product, you like the team, those are the important things, not if it's 5,000 more or less. I guarantee you will make it up in future promotions or future roles.
So one of the themes that I've heard today from folks who visit us in the booth is how do you talk about start date?
Yeah.
How do you talk about possible accommodations? What
Yes.
if I have a leave of absence that I'm in the middle of?
Yes.
So how can people show up and get what they need
Yeah.
in terms of accommodations without turning off a hiring manager in possibly a competitive?
Yes. Being authentic and humble, no hubris. You're not leaning in with aggression. Assertiveness is fine, but this is what I need, right? You would want to, number one, work with your recruiter. If it's early on, if you have a pre-planned vacation, like if you're getting close, and companies will, we have not accommodated that, right? And I've been a recruiting leader for over 30 years. That is expected. People have vacation. The question is paid or unpaid. Once again, you and your manager, if they turn their head, right? No one needs to know if it's in workday or not in workday. So that piece, I would certainly flag the recruiter or flag the hiring manager if you feel you're going down the path. With regards to leave of absence, if you're coming off of a leave of absence, it is up to you what you want to disclose. Nothing is required, and do not feel like you owe it to the company to let them know more information than what's job related. So if in your head you're thinking, God, I'd like to take a few weeks off with the family in the summer, I want to go through Europe, okay? The hiring manager wants you yesterday. If they have a budgeted position that is posted, they're interviewing other candidates and they want you yesterday. At the same time, the recruiter is going to be your advocate because they do understand short-term pain, long-term gain. So you want to work with your recruiter. What is not realistic, I would say over a month is not realistic that they will keep a job open. If you say, it depends on the level and the role, but generally they'll want you to start before a month's time. And also find out Generally, benefits with most companies now and benefit providers start on the day of hire, which is really nice. And generally, a company will start people on the same day each week so that they could group all people together a new hire. So you want to keep that in mind when you're planning.
So at what point in the process? Because you don't want to broach it too soon, but you also don't want anyone to feel like you were baiting and switching.
Yeah. What point in the process do you talk
Do you
about it?
start to talk about, oh, I have this trip or I need these accommodations?
Yeah, it's the and, right? It is, well, how far are you? I'm at third interview. I feel like we're getting close and have that conversation. I have candidates talking with my team throughout the process. Some come forward in a phone screen and they say, these are the type of accommodations that I need. Is that something your company can support? And with small startups, sometimes it's not. We're honest about it. Other because mostly 99% of the time you can't accommodate. But you want to start those conversations, read the room, right? If you feel like it's going in the right direction, remember, recruiter wants to hire you. So does the hiring team. So it's also about trust and you determining how are they responding to this, especially how is my manager responding to whatever if I feel like it's a two-way conversation, that's the right manager. If you feel like, wow, you're hitting roadblocks and it just doesn't feel right, it's not going to feel right in the long term.
That's good guidance, I think, is using that as an additional data point. Is this the right fit for me? And they'll let you know.
Huge. People usually come for a logo and stay for the boss. There's no question. And people will give up a lot of money. And I always tell candidates, the money will come. If you're good, I love the quote this morning is you can't get rid of the experience you already have. If you're good, you put your head down, you work, you're not arrogant, you have open conversations and you're vulnerable, I guarantee you the money will come.
That's good advice. I am going to, we're going to wrap up here in a second, but if anybody has a question that's burning, think about that. But I do want to broach one more thing that I think people ask about a lot, which is I have a job offer
Yep.
and now my current company has countered.
Oh, yes.
So now what?
Okay, I'm already getting sweats.
I know.
Okay, this is like the big oh God, right? Because
Your worst nightmare.
we hire good people. When my recruiters tell me, hey, I'm being recruited, I'm like, of course you are. I'm not going to hire someone that's not being recruited all the time. So you have to assume good people are being, recruited out of the company. When you get a counter offer, and sometimes that does happen, go back, silence your mind, and remember why you started to look. Okay? Because that company might offer you $10,000 more, or they may offer you that great job title. But remember the other pieces, the behavioral pieces, the other stressors, those aren't going away. You might just have a little bit more money. And I never recommend that being a motivator. And we've actually done studies to show that retentions don't really work in the long term. Usually people churn or leave a company before a year.
That's a good data point. Does anybody have a burning question that they'd like to pose, or you can always come and visit us in the booth? Yes,
Yeah.
burning question.
Oh, look. Anything.
Thank you. My question is regarding what you said about reach and like finding people on LinkedIn who work at the company you applied for.
Yeah.
And reaching out to them. It's not weird to reach out to a person you don't know personally. And I don't even feel comfortable reaching out to a person whom I talked to like years ago.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you don't know, when you barely know a person,
Yes.
like how do you do it?
Yes. So the question was, okay, I don't know anyone at that company. How in the world am I going to reach out to anybody? Let me tell you right now, I mentioned build your LinkedIn network. There are hundreds of people here at Day of Security that would be more than happy to speak with you. Remember, I said create spreadsheets, start to build your network and who's connected to whom. Companies want to hire people. It's hard to take a risk, but you really want to do that. You're going to get no's. Recruiting is like a sales cycle. You're getting a lot of people that you know it, not right now. But if you say, do you have time for a 10-minute chat? Don't go to a SVP, right? The reality is they're probably getting a lot of people that are coming at them. Go to someone who's doing the role, right? Hey, I'm just starting out. I'm interested in your field. I saw that you have been doing this. You went to that school. Would you be open to me buying you a virtual cup of coffee or something like that? You would be surprised at how many people would love to help. And that's all you need because that becomes an employee referral and they get money for that. So they want that.
Good point. I think we have to wrap there. Can you come and visit us in the booth? Okay. Thank you so much, Brenley.
Absolutely.
I hope,
I hope that was helpful.
yes. All right. Good luck, everybody.